As we commemorate Teen Suicide Prevention Week, the South African Depression and Anxiety Group says that teen suicide is becoming increasingly common in South Africa. We get an understanding of what has led to this increase with Sadag spokesperson Senzekile Shongwe. Thank you very much, ma'am, for joining us this afternoon. So it's particularly prevalent among which age group?
So teen suicide is particularly prevalent amongst people or teenagers that are from the ages of 15 to the ages of 19.
And when we take a look at the gender composition, who is most or who is at risk of committing suicide?
I think all teenagers are at risk of committing suicide. It's just that the methods that they are using is quite different. So you'd find that with the male teenagers, they use more harsher methods of taking their lives, whereas with the female ones use lesser methods, meaning that the people or the teenagers that use much harsher ways of taking their lives are more at risk of actually succeeding with taking their lives than the females.
When you speak of harsher ways of taking one's life, what do you often see are the cases?
So you'd find that with males, they would use guns or they would use knives to stab themselves, or they would use harsher ways like that. Whereas with females, they would drink pills or they would... So what they use is quite less intense than you would find with males.
What are our young people going through in South Africa that they would consider taking their own lives?
Sure, that is a very important question. So, and I like the question because most of the time we feel as though teenagers do not go through stresses, right? Teenagers are also susceptible to mental illnesses like depression, like suicide ideations. But there's also stresses that affect them, like family-related stresses. When parents are divorcing, that is stressful. When they are not achieving academically the way that they want to achieve, that is stressful. There's also a lot of bullying that is happening at schools that affect teenagers so much to a point where they have a low self-esteem, they do not know how to articulate themselves, and they really feel like they do not belong into the society, which could lead to them wanting to take their lives.
What do parents need to look out for? So I stay with my 10-year-old niece and I see she's moody and I see something has changed. You know, some parents or some people who are staying with grandparents, for instance, you know, people who have a generational gap, they don't understand that, hey, when I stop being moody, you know, or how do we even speak to the children? What do we look out for?
And, you know, every time I've spoken to a teenager that is depressed or is thinking of taking their lives, the reason why they don't open up is because they feel misunderstood by adults. So it is important that as an adult, go to your teenager and ask them, what is happening? I see that you're not doing well. What is the problem and how can I as a parent help you? You do not have to feel as though as a parent you have to have all the answers, because that is what professionals are there for. But if you're there for them, if you open the door for the teenagers to be able to speak to you openly and for you to not judge them, that is the starting point. So if you see that their character is changing, then there is a problem. Get to know their friends, get to know the people that they speak to, and make sure that you are in good conversation and relation with the teenagers that you are living with.
What are you seeing in cases of teenagers who attempt to take their own lives? You dissuade them or you get them into programs where they, you know, are able to manage their lives with some assistance at least. What does their life look like after that? Do they attempt again?
So it depends on the treatment that they're getting and what caused them to even get to that point. So let's say, for example, your child or your teenager is clinically depressed. This means that they have to be on medication. They need to see a psychologist. They need to see a psychiatrist. And they need to go through that treatment plan for them to be better. If it is a situational depression where, for example, they failed a grade and because of that they are embarrassed, they do not want to go back to the society, they do not know what to do, then that is where you have to take them to therapy and also support them and make sure that they do not feel judged and they do not feel belittled just because of a certain failure. So it is important to kind of suss out what has made or triggered your teenager to even think of taking their lives. That will direct you as to what you can do moving forward.
Senzekile Shongwe is the spokesperson and a volunteer at Sadag. Thank you very much for availing yourself this afternoon.